The small town of Willow Creek prided itself on its tranquility, its picket fences, its knowing smiles exchanged between neighbors. But behind one unassuming door, in apartment 2B of the old Henderson building, a silence festered. A silence that masked a darkness, so profound it would eventually shatter the town's idyllic facade and expose the chilling truth about the man no one truly knew. For years, he moved among them, a phantom in plain sight, his ordinary existence a carefully constructed lie. They called him the Quiet Man. They had no idea his silence was a predator's camouflage. This is Wiz Mysteries True Crime, where hidden lives collide with grim reality. Willow Creek, nestled in the rolling hills of an unnamed county, was the kind of place where people moved to escape the chaos of big cities. Its crime rate was enviably low, its streets tree-lined and safe, or so everyone believed. The Henderson apartment building, a two-story brick structure on Elm Street, was home to a mix of young professionals, retirees, and those just seeking affordable quiet. It was by all accounts unremarkable. One of its tenants was Arthur Finch. 42 years old, he was a man of routine and reserve. Neighbors would later recall him as the Quiet One, always kept to himself. He worked a remote data entry job, his hours seemingly as nocturnal as the owls in the nearby woods. His physical presence was average, unmemorable, medium height, thinning brown hair, glasses perched on a nondescript nose. He offered polite, brief nods in the hallway, never initiating conversation, never lingering. His apartment, like his demeanor, was expected to be equally bland, a reflection of a life lived in the quiet margins. In stark contrast to Arthur Finch's muted existence was Sarah Miller. At 31, she was a vibrant graphic designer who had recently relocated to Willow Creek, drawn by its charm and the promise of a slower pace after years in a bustling metropolis. She'd found a small but cheerful apartment across town, eager to plant roots, make friends, and perhaps even start a family someday. Her laughter was infectious, her optimism a beacon. She joined the local book club, frequented the farmer's market, and often jogged along the Willow Creek Trail, a picturesque path that snaked along the river. She represented everything Willow Creek aspired to be: hopeful, fresh, and full of life. It was a Tuesday morning in late October when the first dissonant note struck Willow Creek's harmonious melody. Sarah Miller failed to show up for work at Creative Spark, the small marketing firm where she'd quickly become a valued team member. Chloe, her closest colleague, found it unusual. Sarah was punctual, responsible. A text message went unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. By lunchtime, Chloe's mild concern had sharpened into a knot of anxiety. She remembered Sarah mentioning her evening jog along the Willow Creek Trail and her excitement for the book club meeting the night before. Neither her landlord nor the book club members had seen her since the previous afternoon. She just wouldn't disappear like this, Chloe insisted to the responding officer later that day. Something is wrong, terribly wrong. Detective Miles Harding, a 20-year veteran of the county sheriff's department, felt the familiar prickle of unease. Willow Creek wasn't a stranger to missing persons, but usually it was a teenager running away or an elderly resident wandering off. Sarah Miller's case felt different from the outset. Her apartment was neat, her purse and keys on the kitchen counter, her car in its designated spot. There were no signs of a struggle, no obvious indications of foul play, yet an almost palpable sense of dread hung in the air. The canvas of Sarah's neighborhood and known associates yielded little. Friends described her as cautious, unlikely to invite strangers into her home or engage in risky behavior. The Henderson building, though not in Sarah's immediate vicinity, was on a route she sometimes varied for her jogs. Officers did a cursory check there. Arthur Finch, when questioned, stated he'd been home all night working. He hadn't seen or heard anything unusual. His responses were flat, devoid of emotion, his eyes rarely meeting the officers. Just another quiet resident, easily dismissed. Days turned into a week. Search parties scoured the Willow Creek Trail and surrounding woodlands. Volunteers distributed flyers bearing Sarah's smiling face. Her parents, David and Carol Miller, arrived, their grief a raw, visible wound. She loved it here, Carol whispered to Detective Harding, clutching a photo of Sarah. She said she finally felt safe. The irony was a cruel twist of the knife. Leads were scarce. The investigation briefly focused on a man Sarah had met through a dating app a few weeks prior. He had a minor record, seemed evasive during questioning. For a tense 48 hours, it seemed they might have their man. But his alibi for the night Sarah disappeared proved solid. corroborated by multiple witnesses and CCTV footage from another town. The trail went cold again, the frustration mounting within the department and the community. Detective Harding found himself staring at Sarah's photo late into the night, the unanswered questions gnawing at him. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a few scattered details about Arthur Finch began to surface, not through direct suspicion, but through the meticulous re-interviewing process. Mrs. Henderson, who lived in 2A, remembered a faint, unpleasant smell a few days after Sarah's disappearance. Like strong chemicals, bleach maybe, she'd told a junior officer, an offhand comment initially lost in the noise of the investigation. Another neighbor, a young student, recalled seeing Finch carrying hefty trash bags to the communal bins late one night, his movements furtive. These were tiny fragments, easily explained away in isolation. But Detective Harding, desperate for any new angle, began to wonder. The psychological profile of such a person began to intrigue Harding. He consulted Dr. Evelyn Hayes, a forensic psychologist who occasionally worked with the department. Individuals who commit predatory crimes often exhibit a dual existence, Dr. Hayes explained, her voice calm and analytical. There's the public facade, often bland, unremarkable, designed to deflect attention, and the private reality, where their true nature holds sway. They can be meticulous planners, patient, and highly adept at compartmentally underscore their lives. The silent tenant you described could fit this archetype. He's a ghost in the machine of society. Then, 6 weeks after Sarah Miller vanished, 25-year-old Laura Keynes disappeared from Parkville, a town 30 miles from Willow Creek. The similarities were chilling. Young, cybersecurity expert, new to the area, vanished without a trace from her seemingly secure apartment. Fear escalated into palpable panic across the county. The media, Facebook, Instagram, and the likes dubbed the unknown perpetrator the Willow Creek Phantom. The pressure on Harding and his team became immense. He couldn't shake the feeling that the key lay closer to home, perhaps behind a very quiet door. The faint chemical smell, the late-night trash runs. Could these be connected to something more sinister than just an eccentric recluse? Detective Harding felt a jolt. Bleach. Heavy trash bags. He cross-referenced Finch's vague work details with reported income. It seemed legitimate, if low. But then a breakthrough from an unexpected source. The sanitation department. A diligent worker recalled an unusually heavy bin outside the Henderson building the week Sarah disappeared, and again, more recently, a faint, sweet, cloying odor he couldn't quite place, mixed with something acrid. It wasn't much, but it was enough for Harding to seek a warrant for Arthur Finch's apartment on Elm Street, citing potential evidence tampering or obstruction in a missing persons case, now possibly linked to a second. He knew it was a long shot based on circumstantial evidence, but his gut screamed that Finch was hiding something. The raid on apartment 2B was executed with precision and speed in the gray light of dawn. Sheriff's Department. Search warrant. The door splintered inward. Officers fanned out. Arthur Finch was found sitting calmly at his small kitchen table, a half-eaten bowl of cereal before him. He showed no surprise, no fear, merely a flicker of something unreadable in his pale eyes as handcuffs were snapped onto his wrists. "You're making a mistake, detective," he said, his voice barely a whisper. At first glance, the apartment was unnervingly ordinary, obsessively clean. Too clean. The smell of industrial-strength cleaning agents was faint but pervasive. Then, behind a false back panel in the bedroom closet, they found it. Not a scene of overt gore, but something far more chilling in its calculated horror. A small, soundproofed room, no larger than a walk-in closet. Inside, a single steel chair. Restraints. A collection of newspaper clippings about missing women from 3 different states, spanning 5 years, including Sarah Miller and Laura Keynes. And on a small, meticulously organized shelf, a series of small, cheap digital cameras and a row of SD cards, each neatly labeled with a date and a single initial. The twist wasn't just that Finch was the killer. It was the horrifying extent of his methodical, almost scientific approach to his gruesome hobby. He wasn't just a silent tenant. He was a collector of lives, a meticulous archivist of suffering. His journals, found beneath his mattress, detailed a chillingly detached psychological self-assessment, almost as if he were studying himself, his compulsions, and his successes with a cold, academic rigor. He saw himself not as a monster, but as a superior intellect, playing a complex game. The true horror of Arthur Finch's hidden life began to unspool. The hidden room was a place of unspeakable acts, yet kept with the same chilling order as the rest of his apartment. The SD cards contained hundreds of hours of footage, not of the crimes themselves, but of his victims in their final, terrifying moments, their faces etched with fear. Finch, it appeared, derived a perverse sense of power and control from these recordings, replaying them, studying them. The journals were a terrifying window into a profoundly disturbed psyche. Written in a neat, precise hand, they chronicled his stalks, his methods of abduction, often exploiting his victims' kindness or momentary lapses in security, and his twisted rationalizations. He referred to his victims as specimens, and his actions as experiments in control and fear. In the interrogation room, Arthur Finch remained largely impassive, a wall of chilling calm. He denied nothing explicitly, but offered no confession. Instead, he spoke in riddles, quoting obscure philosophy, attempting to engage Harding in intellectual sparring. "Understanding is such a subjective concept, detective," he'd murmur, a faint smirk playing on his lips. It became clear that Finch's psychology was a labyrinth of narcissism, psychopathy, and a profound detachment from human empathy. He believed himself intellectually superior, above the moral codes that governed others. The evidence from his apartment, however, was damning. DNA, fibers, and personal items from Sarah Miller and Laura Keynes were found. The digital evidence and journals further painted a picture of at least 3 other victims in different states, unsolved cases that now had a horrifying resolution. Arthur Finch was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, with investigations ongoing into the other cold cases his journals and trophies implicated. The trial was a media sensation, Willow Creek thrust into a harsh national spotlight. Finch, representing himself with an unnerving composure after dismissing his court-appointed lawyer, attempted to turn the proceedings into a showcase for his warped intellect. The jury, however, saw through the facade, delivering guilty verdicts on all counts after only a few hours of deliberation. He was sentenced to multiple consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. The judge called him an affront to humanity, a man who weaponized anonymity to commit unspeakable evils. The impact on Willow Creek was profound. The town's innocence was irrevocably lost. Doors were locked earlier, strangers eyed with suspicion, the easy trust between neighbors strained. The Henderson building became a macabre landmark, its property value plummeting, apartment 2B remaining perpetually empty, a silent testament to the horrors it once concealed. For the families of Sarah Miller, Laura Keynes, and the other victims Finch was suspected of killing, the verdict brought a measure of justice, but not true closure. The why would forever haunt them. How could such evil exist unnoticed for so long? Law enforcement agencies across several states re-examined their cold cases, sobered by the realization of how easily Finch had moved between jurisdictions, his unassuming nature his greatest weapon. The case became a stark study in criminal psychology, emphasizing the mask of sanity that highly organized psychopaths can wear with terrifying perfection. Arthur Finch wasn't a visibly deranged monster. He was the quiet man next door, a chilling reminder that the most dangerous predators are often those who blend seamlessly into the fabric of everyday life. His silence had been his shield, his ordinariness his most effective disguise. The case of Arthur Finch, the silent tenant of Willow Creek, serves as a chilling exploration of the darkest corners of the human psyche. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that evil doesn't always announce itself with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it whispers from the apartment next door, hidden behind a veneer of utter normalcy. His actions reveal the terrifying capacity for deception inherent in some individuals, masters of a double life where their public face bears no resemblance to the abyss within. While justice was served, the questions surrounding the psychology of men like Arthur Finch linger. What creates such a profound disconnect from humanity? How can such meticulous, predatory planning coexist with an apparently mundane life? The ongoing study of criminal psychology seeks to unravel these horrifying enigmas, not to excuse, but to understand and perhaps, one day, to better identify the silent tenants among us before their secrets erupt into tragedy. The grim reality is that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we never see coming. If this story captivated you, subscribe for more Wiz Mysteries, and let us know in the comments which case you want next.